welcome back to Stacked and Loaded. Today I'm joined by Dan and James, the industry leaders in WMS recruitment. Dan, James, welcome to Stacked and Loaded.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience today. We were all running a little bit late, and that's my fault, so I apologise for keeping you waiting. So let's introduce you both to the audience. James, should we start with
Yep.
with yourself first? If you just want to give us a quick 5-minute helicopter view on where you started and where you are now.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people know me from the domestic side of things. So being in the domestic recruitment world for 13 years now. I suppose most recently is the most relevant. I was the MD of a company called Infinite Talent that we co-founded with Dan. Went through an MBO journey with those guys over a couple of year period. Couldn't get to a satisfactory sort of end in terms of where I wanted to exit. So left and set up NXA Talent 13 months ago, which is where we are now. Team of 7, UK, well, globally now, but UK and mainland Europe predominantly, specifically within the domestic supply chain technology space. So, yeah, that's sort of me as a helicopter view.
Yeah. And I've got a question, but I think it'll involve both of you, so I'll come
Okay.
back if I can towards the end. Dan?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Hayward. Also, I suppose, famous for WMS and supply chain recruitment and services. My career, very similar to James, as you'd imagine, started in recruitment. Left recruitment, went into the consulting side of things with a company called REPL, who were subsequently acquired by Accenture. After leaving REPL, we co-founded Infinite together. As James mentioned, there was an MBO process, which didn't materialize to our satisfaction that we wanted. So I left Infinite and joined another WMS consultancy business to head up their sales function. And now in January, I'm embarking on a career as a fractional sales enablement consultant.
That's a good, that's a good business card, isn't it?
Yeah. So
What was the spark that led you both to start Infinite?
Well, I think that's that's a bit of a Aladdin's cave of Pandora's box actually. So I think basically what it was is that I'd left where I was before Infinite, a company called Progressive Recruitment, which is a great company, but just didn't align with where I wanted to get to in terms of being a little bit more creative.
it's very cool, so it wasn't it?
Yeah, really corporate, great business, but very corporate. I got headhunted by a company called Rethink Group that was more of a generalist recruitment company, but had some major clients. And they wanted to set up a specialist part of their recruitment business. So they hired me, was there for a couple of years, and then basically I found out that my wife was pregnant with our son, who's now nearly 7. And I was like, I want to have my own business. It's just, I don't know what it was in my head. It suddenly clicked. And I was like, right, I need to make some real, wealth for the family and, or, legacy and all that sort of stuff. So we went to Rethink, said, look, this is the situation. Me and Dan were talking about doing a business separately. Said, look, we've got an offer to go and set up a recruitment company specialising in WMS. They said, if we can do the same for you, would you stay? So
Yeah.
I did, and then you joined, and we set up Infinite. And
February 2019.
5.5 years ago,
Yeah.
6 years ago. So I made that into a real player. So that's how we came to Infinite, I suppose.
Yeah.
As a journey.
And how was the journey once you joined Infinite? Because I know the name, well, as most people do, I think, quite well in the industry. So only 5 years ago, it's quite a big growth pattern, at least in terms of social media footprint, and I'm sure in terms of financials as well. So, what was that journey like? And did you see it in the same way as I think I did from the outside? That it really sort of appeared quickly on the market?
I think it did. I think that, well, I think there's two things. I think perception and reality are two different things, aren't they? So I think that everyone perceived that we were the owners of that business. We weren't. We were employees of that business without equity in that business. So we were quite naive, I think, and went on a journey with that.
We founded a brand for someone else, effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I left Infinite, people were reaching out going, oh, we thought it was your business, etc. So that's why it was quite cathartic to do a podcast a few months ago to explain that. And I think the reason why Infinite did so well, for me, the name's irrelevant. It's the delivery behind it. And because of the reputations that we had as being real special in the area, Infinite came back, so we're doing a bit of a brainstorm, and one of the marketing guys go, well, what about Infinite? Could you say about having long lasting relationships with clients and candidates? So they were like, okay, yeah, that's good. And then same again with marketing NXA, they were like, well, and NXA is an acronym for Next Adventure. So it was a buzzword that I used to use. So for me, the name above the door is irrelevant. It's the people that the clients are dealing with. But it got a lot of traction because it was something fresh, new. So we had a lot of control over what we could do from a marketing perspective.
And then I agree with James. It's the service that defined us effectively. That's what retained our customers. That's what gained us customers. I think the pandemic was instrumental for us in terms of, a lot of people were struggling and stuff. Clip and Logistics were our biggest customer, and they won the PPE contract to distribute to all the hospitals in the UK. And I think they set up 5 or 6 sites in a 3-month period, and we, behind the scenes of that, provided them with hundreds of staff to get that going. So from that base point, I think we earned quite a good reputation around not just being your classic recruitment company. We did them a commercial deal, which not many people know about. We were placing people for £500 per placement just to help them and get it going. And in the pandemic, it wasn't that. It changed I guess our view on the world, really.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with Infinite, again, cathartic to talk about it. The worst decision that we made was going in when we split out into different markets. So we were known for WMS, logistics, supply chain, technology. And in my head, I thought, actually, we can just do HR recruitment, finance recruitment within those clients. It wasn't successful at all because people knew us as a specialist.
Yeah.
When we then went through and said, we can do your HR and your finance, they were like, well, there's 1,000 of the recruiters that do that. So thanks, but we've already got those relationships with those guys. And almost it reduced not even reduced our reputation, is the wrong word to use, but it's sort of questioned in terms of, we're saying you're specialists. So I just thought in my head, HR and finance would be a really nice bolt off.
Yeah, and I think HR was the most successful out of those two dabbles, if you want to call them that. We approached our customers effectively and said, where else do you spend money that isn't with Infinite? And HR and finance were the two that came back as areas. So we had relative success in HR, not so much in finance, really. So that's a lesson learned, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. And as I said, I noticed Infinite quite a lot in the market, mainly on the social media things. So at that time, I was fresh back into the market after living overseas for many, many years. But I also see the same with NXA Talent at the moment. So there's a proverb out there which I won't repeat on a podcast, but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So is that something that you purposefully do now for NXA Talent in terms of pushing the media, or was that something you also did in Infinite? Are you following the same?
I'm just really passionate about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, I've got a very big network on LinkedIn. I've got, so I've hit the limit of how many followers, how many connections you have, like 30,000 and whatever. And ultimately, the LinkedIn is your window. And what was very interesting is that I had a web launch NXA. I looked at the website and everything now, how it was. It looked like my 7-year-old son had made the website with the greatest respect. And then we had a branding company that came in. So what we've created now, everything I post is from a perspective of, why is that relevant to a client or a candidate? But also, I think when I get everyone to try and post as much as they can do, but make sure it's relevant content and not just like spam stuff. Because I want our brand to be, as I've said from day dot, which is 13 months in, to be that leading domestic supply chain recruitment partner globally by Q1 of next year. And with the people that we've hired, we're absolutely going to do that. So I think you only do that by having presence. But I look at some of the stuff, not to go into a tangent, I told you about this earlier, was like some of the dross that gets put on LinkedIn. Like there was a recruitment company that did a poll yesterday that said, I know it's early, but is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I'm just like, what? Like that's where the differences is between generalist and specialist in terms of like what on earth has that got to do with anything? That make no sense. But the NXA brand now has had a refresh. It's all about people seeing it on their feeds.
Yeah. So I agree with James. I disagree with you on a slight point actually there. I think people do like to see the human side of the company as well. So some of your posts are, sometimes, all right, you salmon and eggs, I get that one. But, some of your other posts do bring out a human side. I think some companies can be a bit too corporate and don't let you see the individuals that are behind those. But yeah, from a brand, we were once called the Kardashians of LinkedIn, and I'm not sure whether that's a compliment or a criticism, but effectively it's a personal brand at the end of the day. And if you genuinely believe in the area you're doing, James and I, we post, they're genuine posts, aren't they? They're what's in our head and what we post. I've worked with people that overpost and like the diehard sort of comments. Yeah, I mean, it's just a bit. I don't get that myself. I don't understand what LinkedIn isn't that platform, for me anyway. And I also work with people who almost never post on LinkedIn, and I also don't understand that either. For me, I think your content should be natural and it should be what you want to post to reflect you as a person. And I think from a brand perspective, Infinites was all organic, wasn't it? We ended up with 40,000 followers or whatever it was on LinkedIn, and that was all organic. You've got, I don't know how many, I've nearly 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. You've got whatever it's.
37,000.
Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't have those in relative to Instagram. I mean, we'd be
Yeah.
millionaires by now. But
Yeah, but it's also as well, when you're doing about your marketing with the business, it's about the consistency of output
yes,
and consistency of quality and variance and authenticity
yes,
is really, really important, because people look through the bullshit part of the language, don't they? They can see through it and go, that's a load of rubbish. Or,
Yeah.
I've been very, very clear from January of this year what my vision was. I've been very vocal about it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that want me to fail on that vision, as I'm sure people, along the
well, it's the common theme. I don't know whether it's a British thing or whatever, but people are, they're obsessed with people failing, aren't they?
A misery loves company, they say.
Well, yeah, it's, look at Jude Bellingham stuff in media at the moment. There's an obsession with bringing people down, isn't there? And that's fine, but
and also people only want to do so well.
yeah, of course, yeah.
So whereas next for NXA and DLH Tech, Tech and Talent, as you just found it.
It's an exclusive there for you, Simon. That's no one knows about that yet. But no, that's for me anyway. It's just that's my my business to do this fractional sales enablement that I was talking about. I think something I've realised since leaving Prime Horizon is there are a lot of growing SMEs out there that potentially either don't need a full-time sales director or can't afford a full-time sales director, or just don't want that model. They want someone a couple of days a week or X amount of hours a week to really go and drive their product or service to market. And that's where I'm aiming myself, really. Some smaller business that I can personally get stuck in, and they can get the real term benefits of someone in sales rather than just a.
I think that in itself is a growing market. I think I mentioned it maybe on the first podcast that we recorded here, that the SMEs who can't afford those sort of big C-suite powerhouse, and I was talking about supply chain consultants in that respect, fractional is the way to go for, could be a day a week, a day a month, depending on what they want. So there's absolutely a market for it. So yeah, I hope to see as much DLH on LinkedIn as I see NXA. And then what's next for NXA? So I mean, I've seen a lot of your own recruitment going on in the last few months online. So I guess the team is getting bigger.
Yeah, so obviously we're a team of, not obviously, but we're a team of 7 now. It's all about stabilising, and future growth for me is going to be very minimal over the next 12 months. Unless I know there's 3 people in the market that I want to hire. They know that I want to hire them. So if they were to become available, I'd move. But it's all about now embedding the guys in, making sure, because obviously growing that quickly has its challenges culturally, because I'm very clear on the culture, but also getting used to new environments. The John Deacon, who I hired, who was my main competitor in the WMS world.
When you say hired, you mean bought or hired?
Bought to hire.
Okay.
Yeah. He's come over, but he was in an organisation for 10 years. So I want everyone to embed in. I want to still be here in this time next year. My biggest thing is really expanding into the European part. That's what John's come over to do alongside me. That's where the demand is. That's where we're doing a lot. We're known in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, everyone knows us, to be fair. So it's just about getting that message out. Europe, and then the next phase will be sort of America, Australia, hopefully.
Sounds good.
Okay, so why would a company generally want to use NXA or need to use NXA and DLH in the future, rather than using their own internal HR teams?
I suppose mine's a shorter answer, so if you want me to go first. Yeah, first. As I think I alluded to previously, it's my offering is more around, giving my network and my skills and access to a salesperson of my sort of ability for companies that maybe couldn't get to someone like me otherwise, if they're a small growing business. And, obviously our network in logistics and supply chain is quite vast. So, for me, any companies that are looking to sell into that space, I personally feel I could help them. And whether that's fractional or full-time, etc., then it gives companies an alternative to the norm, I suppose, of just, right, we're going to hire a sales director on 6 figures and they're going to plug away at doing X. My offering is, right, here's my fractional offering, here's the milestones, and do we deliver against those? And if we don't, okay, fine, let's address that. So yeah, that's my offering. And the question to James as well, I'm sure I'm going to agree with your answer to this as well.
Yeah, well, again, only everyone could go, we're a boutique agency, all these sort of buzzwords. Ultimately, it's 50 years plus combined experience within recruitment, within the set verticals that we operate in. Within WMS specifically, we've got, 37 years experience within WMS. So, using NXA as it stands currently, we're the market leader in the UK for sure around that. So it's the speed of delivery, it's the knowledge that we have. And it really is the power with the candidate to get them to see the clients that we have, the relationships, because we know them all personally. We don't ring up and go, do our job here. It's like, okay, this is the vision, this is what they're doing, this is why you need to have a conversation. And we're trusted advisors. Factually, we've placed 90% of the WMS market at some juncture between us anyway.
Yeah, so yeah.
But they pick up the phone. We're trusted to them. So we've placed people.
And that's really helped me in my going from recruitment to, I suppose, consultancy and sales from that perspective, from a services angle, is a lot of the customers that I work with, I probably placed or interacted with as a candidate when I was in the recruitment side of things. So it adds that different dynamic to picking up the phone to someone to have a conversation about a product or a service. They're more likely to give me the time of day than, Joe Blogs that's off the street. And the same with if James is pitching a role to someone that a company wants to hire a really good individual for, they're more likely to listen to you and have that conversation with the customer, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, we had a meeting with a client on Friday that was in Germany, and I had never spoken to him before. So sometimes I do struggle when they don't sort of know who I am, because obviously again in the UK, 90% in that world will know me. And I was sort of very direct with him. I said, like, do you want me to be honest or diplomatic, as it were? And I said, like, I want to work with you. I want to work with you as an organisation. We can add significant value for you. And just blew you on the thing. He goes, well, send me a few examples and I'll CVs, anonymised, and I'll see what I think. I said, look, again, not to be too direct about it, but I know 100% that you need my help. We'll be able to support all these other companies around your geographic in Germany, etc. And he just smiled, and it's like the proof in the pudding. And then when they see the CVs, they're like, oh, actually, yeah, they do understand what I need as a client. It's not just buzz.
I think that's maybe a challenge in recruitment, though, isn't it? Everyone's constantly pitching, and it adds a lot of noise around the people that are specialists, and there's others, aren't there? In other industries, other fields that we, I suppose, see on LinkedIn, and that are, they are genuinely specialists. And usually, Simon, the key is the length of service in the industry, isn't it? The people that have stayed in the same space for a long time tend to be good at what they do.
It's also staying in lane.
Yeah, exactly.
Staying what you're known for and what you're famous for, and just really being great at that. The byproduct of that is that hopefully grow a business.
And then what's your current client base in terms of size and speciality, and where would you like to be if that needs to be changed? So you said you're looking at SMEs mainly, so you're looking at sort of round A, round B, holding level businesses up to 50 million type revenue, or?
For me, it's more of the niche players in the supply chain world. If you've got a bit of software that you're trying to sell into your, usually a retail or logistics customer, anyone with a distribution center, warehouse, and whatever, those sort of companies are my personal target customers. But when I'm in one of those companies, my target customers are similar to yours: global retailers, global logistics businesses. They're the key players, really. And that's for WMS or associated technology.
Yeah. It's what's out for us. We've always been across 3 areas. So 3PL, retail and consulting. Predominantly because that's where the tier 1 solutions are that we're really passionate around, are operated in, and also that have the global scale. So we're just developing those clients that they've worked in the UK that have global reach.
Yeah. So I might try to ask the same question in a slightly different way, but what can you do that an internal team, HR, recruiting team can't do? Why would somebody come to you guys?
Well, the crux of it is that they won't be able to find the people that we can. And the internal teams are great. You've been ahead of internal recruitment for Repl.
Yeah.
And where we work alongside, if internal, I'm probably going to annoy a few of them now. If internal recruitment teams were specialist, there's been no need for us whatsoever, but they need to do the volume. So we will come in, they'll have 100 roles, and they might give us 1 or 2 to work alongside them because they haven't got the time or the specialists to be able to go out and get them. They've got higher volume elsewhere.
Yeah.
So the reason why they would come to us is that a client ring on a Friday and go, they need a Blue Yonder or a Manhattan person to start on Monday. And I know the exact people who can do that job specifically. That'll be in their inbox within half an hour. That's the speed of delivery. That's what they pay for. That's why if you're a generous recruiter now, and certainly in this market, you're scuppered.
But you haven't got time to go to market as such. You haven't got time to advertise. You haven't got time to jump on job boards or LinkedIn recruiting, which is, the standard tools. As I say, mine and James's head sit the candidates and the 12 years worth of connections. And I think, I was the head of recruitment for REPL for 2.5 years, and the internal recruitment function there, my standards were I wanted to build an agency within that business, because if you're recruiting for the same skill set over and over again, you shouldn't need an external recruitment partner, in my opinion. The example I can give you, which is what James was saying, we were recruiting the same skill sets in certain, like testing, for example, over and over again. So the recruiter that's assigned to that market should know their candidates like we do as an agency. I think I used a recruiter because we needed to hire a lawyer, because we might need to hire a lawyer once every 5 years. So there's no point dedicating resource to building a pool of lawyers when you could just go to a specialist in law and go, I need a lawyer in Henley and Arden on X salary. And it's the same with WMS, isn't it? If you're working for, I don't know, a large UK retailer, their internal teams are going to hire WMS people once every 3 years. So it kind of doesn't make sense for them to divert resources to pooling up large pools of Blue Yonder resource, when actually it's probably quicker, cheaper and easier for James to come in and fill the job for.
But it's also, can we use the sort of phrase, it's staying in lane, because these candidates that we place aren't on job boards. We don't go on job boards to find candidates.
Correct.
We've done it based on 13, 14, 15 years worth of experience within these technologies and meeting them and placing them. There isn't one candidate we don't know in the UK certainly from a Blue Yonder perspective, for sure. So that's the major variance. You can't do. And also, this other thing is that we know which the bad ones are.
That's big.
CV looks great.
Yeah.
And when I flag a name up and I go, you have it, absolutely not, because we know all the backdrop behind it. Very big difference. So, and also the other thing as well is that cultural fit within that organisation. Are they going to be good?
Yeah,
some agile. Are they going to can they add the value? There's a lot that goes behind it rather than a keyword search and hoping for the best.
And some candidates are suited to different environments, aren't they? Some candidates are better in a 3PL, more rough and ready environment. Some candidates are more suited to an Accenture environment because they're very polished, or there's that to take into consideration. And when we're working with customers, we try and apply that to the customer as well, and say, actually, this person might fit your organisation better than, say, this person.
And reputationally, one bad hire in my world is very impactful. All gets forgotten, all the good work. One bad one.
Yeah.
And
It's squash the business.
And it's a difficult question, I think, to answer, but you've clearly got a very clear set of highly skilled candidates that you, let's say, rely on, although that probably changes a little bit. But over time, how would you measure that as a percentage of all the candidates that have come through your table? Is that a...
Well, who we know?
Yeah. Or have dealt with, let's say.
Now it's 100%.
Right.
Quite literally. Now, where that gets different is in Europe that we're going into, because that's going into a territory that we're not as known. Happy to go and validate.
I think it highlights a problem, actually, because that WMS pool has only ever been shrinking since we started. The numbers of people that, like, I'm talking contractors now, the numbers that are retiring aren't being repopulated, are they, by up and coming candidates? There's less and less candidates. So I think that does become hard, actually.
Yeah, it does. But I think the thing what we do, and certainly what I do, because your role is different to mine, but like, if I come across a candidate that I don't know, for whatever reason, whether that be UK, Europe, I'll know someone who knows that person. So I do an off the record check and just go, look, actually, you've worked with this guy or lady, whatever. Can you just let me know any red flags or good, etc. So, because you said putting your name to something is really, it means something in this world. Certainly, it's your own company as well. So that's how we also do it. It's just by that 360
Mm.
sort of check-in points, which we can do without, the candidate knowing as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes is the best way of being able to check it, so
Yeah. Well, word of mouth, I think, is by far the strongest
absolutely 100%.
market of a person anyway, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah.
So I think it's crucial. You mentioned that the pool is getting smaller. I mean, I think the market at the moment is probably a little bit disjointed. There's probably a larger amount of candidates for less demand. But where do you see the next area of growth coming? Automation, AI, robotics. I mean, we speak about it quite a lot. But where do you see the current demand growing?
Yeah, I think personally, automate where I think you'll see more automated warehouses going forward purely because of economic pressures around minimum wages, cost of employing people is just forever going in the wrong direction, isn't it? Really. So the way to solve that is to automate. I think AI will come to the fore in our world, logistics and supply chain. I've said it 100 times. Our industry is at least 10 years behind other industries when it adopts emerging technology. Test automation is a brilliant example. That is only now prevalent in WMS. If you think of a company like Cycle Labs, they're like 5 years old.
Yeah.
When you think of Selenium as a test automation tool, has been around 25 years. That for me shows you where we are in supply chain tech versus other industries. So I think AI will play a big part because there's a lot of, I know, yourself, there's a lot of manual processes and things in a warehouse where actually a bit of AI will help those processes. And it's not about replacing humans. It's about humans working with AI to make better informed decisions across an operation or an estate from a technology perspective. And, I think from what James is saying as well in recruitment, I think the challenge will be is keeping that population of candidates in the gene pool, because it's not all the stuff we do. You can't go to university and do a course in it. It's people fall into it, don't they? They either get seconded on a project if you're in a big 3PL and it's, oh, you're on the WMS project now. And all of a sudden they become a WMS consultant or, a WMS architect or something like that. I think for me, the biggest worry has always been where's the next generation of WMS people coming from?
And if you think AI is likely to be a big pole star for the future, do you see a migration from other industries into WMS, or we'll just learn from the other industries as we
I
go?
think it'll give, and I've seen this in real life, right? Because there's a product called Chat WMS. That's the two American lads have made this product that sits across a WMS platform, and it's effectively de-skilling WMS in a positive way. So instead of needing, I don't know, 15 Yonder architects, Chat WMS allows you to interact with your WMS in spoken or written English, converts that to SQL and brings you back what you would need, so an information report, etc. Now, historically, you need someone that knows SQL to write that query for you. With the emergence of AI, you then don't. It's actually a shrinking pool of WMS consultants.
Yeah.
Potentially, the one will then catch the other up, if that makes sense. So I think that investment in AI could actually solve the skill shortage problem,
Yeah.
in a way. But effectively, you're still going to need your architects to set up a product like Chat WMS. You're still going to need an architect to build your system. We're not there. We're not generative AI. We're not there where you can just tell it to configure your warehouse for Beyonder. We're light years away from that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of consolidation in the market as well at the moment between the logistical players as well.
Yeah.
I guess the backdrop of that is the WMSs will also consolidate because some will come across as goodwill and they'll sort of
It's an interesting one, actually, isn't it?
hibernate them.
Maybe you can talk about that. I mean, you look at GXO, for example, who have, bought Clipper, they've bought Wincanton. Wincanton are the anomaly because they're not on Dispatch, are they?
No, they're on Manhattan, but I think that, yeah, I think 3PL world's a very interesting world at the moment, isn't it? If you look at like VSV and DB Schenker, like two whoppers coming together, like it's a very bizarre place that some of these things have got through the relevant bodies anyway, isn't it? So I think for me, I think to your point of AI, I don't believe anything AI because I'm totally ignorant around it, and I get everyone that tells me you need to do it. It's coming, it's here. Embrace it, and I think it has its place and its a purpose. But I also think that you can't replace people that have within WMS that have the battle scars of when you do X on a system, it means Y. It means the system's not going to function. That's what people want. So I think everything you did absolutely 100% to make it more streamlined, and there's certain roles that become redundant, just a fact. But you also can't replace the human.
But that's the whole
point.
for me. That's the whole point of AI. It's not to replace something. It's just to give, I suppose, less technical people access to their systems, because I agree with James. You'll never replace, from that implementation perspective, that real world experience. That's 200 years away or whatever. Really, point in the future. I think it's just the mundane. If you need an I report making, well, I don't have to send that to the technical team, wait 3 days to come back, get my reports, and that report's then, oh, I didn't need it like that anymore. That's where AI will come in,
Yeah.
because it'll make the user
Yeah.
able to do things that usually more technical skill people need to do.
I mean, the amount of emails that I get from that AI generated, saying like it's a pleasure to speak to a leader within the supply chain, and I'm just like, and recruiters are now using AI for outreach,
Yeah.
and so they're replacing a human experience with something, because it's just being lazy and just trying to do that. You'll never be able to replace meeting people face to face on site, understanding what's going on, their requirements. Fact, that will never go. But what it means for us is those recruitment companies that are relying on AI for outreach, which is a lot of them now,
Yeah.
it strengthens our position because it's our differential.
It's not just recruitment either.
That's everything.
It's sales in general, and this
So
is
loud.
part of the reason setting up my business. It's people need to leverage a network still. Little black books are still a thing, right?
Yeah.
Those connections and people joining dots, and James and I's relationship. I might have a sales opportunity that James could. James might pass one to me, and that network still, that ecosystem is still there. And AI is never going to replace that. Is it lazy or is it efficiency? It's a very fine line, I think, around people now getting rid of salespeople to do AI outreach. I'm not so sure we're there yet, to be honest. And again, I'm here to be proven wrong. But
You went through it. I mean, I say to my son who's 7 that the next niche in terms of skill set for his generation when he gets to work age is actually being able to sit in a boardroom and be able to converse
100%.
with people. Because it's just, I've got a brother who's 21, a YouTuber and doing all that sort of stuff, but he struggles to be able to like in social environments or be able to converse and things. So everyone's getting pushed down on the tech side. It's great, but I think being able to actually physically talk to people, you're going to be it's like, electricians and plumbers, they're all in demand, aren't they? This sort of skilled labour as well. So I think it's going to be a fascinating place over the next few years.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you see the general profile of clients changing? I mean, certainly post COVID and things like that. And we've mentioned a little bit about the skills and AI and things like that. But do you see the profile over the last 5-10 years changing at all?
The biggest thing for me is the working from home, hybrid, in the office type thing. I think COVID was the biggest workplace transformational thing that ever happened. Everyone literally had to work from home, which works for some people. I personally hate it. I like being in an environment. I think, James, you're the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am seeing it now where my customers, again, I was at PhD, they now want that on-site presence again. And some people it creates a bit of conflict because people have forgotten what the world used to be like. And I think that's the biggest challenge I saw is convincing people that, hey, X customers paying X a day for their highly paid consultant. They want to see you. They want to interact with you. They want to engage with you for the 8 hours a day you're there. And that's for me the biggest change. We've gone from totally working from home, and I think we're coming back out of that now.
Yeah. I think that with regards to clients as well, everyone will go, right, I think you touched on earlier, Simon, around that, but the e-commerce boom, and then the high street presence and things like that. But actually, it's all still very, very similar, because if you look at the high street retailers like the B&Ms or Selfridges, we're talking about in the coffee, where we've got the two extremities. You have people that want to go to Selfridges and Harrods and Fortnum and Mason for the experience, they'll never go. And then you'll have the B&Ms and the ranges and stuff so two total opposites of the spectrum. But then you have the online retailers, like the ASOSes and the Boohoo's that have gone through like horrendous flux in terms of their supply chain when they've tried to go into America and things and really, really struggled. And they're a pure e-com player. So I think it's really interesting how it doesn't matter if you're high street, doesn't matter if you're pure e-com, like you're not safe at the moment. It's really, really, really fascinating.
It is
Really fascinating.
because it does actually seem like if you're very high end market, you do really well. If you're sort of bargain basement, you do really well. It's this middle of the road type retailers who I think are struggling to find their place potentially, and that's the biggest challenge, I suppose, from the retail industry. I think go back to the original point though of change. I think COVID just created a massive like tsunami in the market. So like online retail, you think of people like Boohoo, etc. their growth was astronomical. 2019, 2020, 2021. I think some of them genuinely thought that would continue and not just drop off when the shops open back up. But
Peloton was the worst.
Peloton is a great example. It's insane, isn't it? How that analysts can't see that's a market force, not a trend or an actual thing. And yeah, I think striking that balance and it's like we were saying, and you were saying about having your niche. I think retailers need a niche as well. They need a target audience and customer base that are going to be loyal to their.
Yeah, it's interesting. I worked for a PE house just after COVID in the construction market, and they saw exactly the same thing. Through COVID, people were retiling and redoing the garden and all that, and their volumes went through the roof. And then for the next 2 years, it's flatline, nothing. So a lot of consolidation also in the construction industry as well. So
I think as well, if you're not hit by COVID, then you're getting a cyber attack, aren't you? Yeah, it's just literally horrendous with what's happened with JLR and with M&S and
yeah, it was Cloudflare today. I don't think it was a hack. It was just a failure, wasn't it? But
yeah, and there's all these conspiracy theories that go out, isn't there, and all that shit. But you're really so volatile at the moment.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because SaaS and cloud is seen as really safe. When you break it down, it's just a server in someone else's house, not in your house.
yeah,
That's effectively what SaaS is. It's hosted somewhere else. So it's right. You'd argue it's equally as vulnerable as to attack as anything else that you're hosting yourself. Really,
yeah.
it's I think it is a wake up call for a lot of companies because I think it's kind of out of sight, out of mind when it's hosted somewhere else. It's just I don't know. I think we might see a shift back to on-prem hosted solutions.
And did it change at all? It must have changed how you recruited for those times. I know another recruiter who still, I think, does almost 100% virtual interviews and things like that. So have you moved back then fully to? I mean, yeah, you're in a fairly luxurious position at the moment where you know your whole sort of talent pool to a certain degree.
Yeah, but I think for me in my world, I've always, as soon as I was like legally able during COVID to go out and see clients and candidates, I've never moved away from that. The majority of recruiters will class a Teams meeting as a meeting, whereas I see that as a level above a telephone call. So every single client that we place with, we'll go out and see, or even pre-placement, obviously, if we've got a job or a new client, we'll go and meet them. If a repeat client, we'll go and meet them for after placement meetings, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we flew out to the Netherlands last week to go and speak to several clients. Flew out to the Netherlands a few months ago to say thank you for the business and all that sort of stuff. So that for me and with my team will never change because I think COVID has created laziness and apathy within that area. Again, people are seeing it as commodities and doing a Teams call. Teams call is the worst case scenario for me. I don't know.
That's how you move it forward from that Teams call. It's, if that's the first bit of introduction, it's fine. But it's how do you get to that side tour, that meeting? Because I agree, Teams calls they're quite, they're convenient, aren't they, for both parties? But does it test commitment like a good site meeting or a good?
Yeah, I think a lot of chemistry is lost, isn't it? Whether it's body language or whatever it is, something is lost.
And realistically, are people actually concentrating 100% on what you're saying when you're on a Teams meeting?
And people don't. Well, the problem is that people don't want to pay the money to go out or their time or whatever it is. And whereas when I was first doing recruitment, I was like, what on earth would I be stuck in the office for? Why wouldn't I want to go and see a client site of how I get in there, how a candidate signs in, what does the technology look like in the warehouse, really understand it tangibly, so I can go and explain that, and then speak to all of the candidates and meet them after interviews and all that. I've never. It's one thing I've never understood why people don't do it in as I said earlier, in a people-led industry that people don't meet.
Yeah.
I genuinely, I don't. I find it fascinating.
You also did have a customer 5 minutes away from your house. That was a good Friday afternoon meeting for you as well, wasn't it?
Who's that? Eric's.
I don't know. Who was it used to meet on Friday afternoon?
I don't know. I love a little lunch. I love a little lunch or a little dinner. My wife always says to me, "Oh, you going out for dinner again?" I was like, "Do you know how many recruiters would love to be able to have that one-on-one time?" But again, it is also about saying, in my industry, certainly, if you're charging 20% of a salary, and maybe I say that's 50 grand, so you're charging 10,000 quid plus VAT. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. In what other industry would you get that money and not have met the person during that transaction?
You wouldn't buy a car without seeing it, would you? For the same, thing. And I agree with James. And the problem I think a lot of recruiters have, especially, I think you'll agree with this, James, is some people just can't be bothered to go out, and they see it as a major inconvenience, don't they, to go and do it, when actually, why wouldn't you do that?
But the amount of clients and candidates I speak to that say, God, you're the first recruiter that I've met. And the same for the candidates. If like whenever I go on site or one of the team goes on site and they're meeting their contractor, as an example, I'll say, tell them to bring all the other contractors with them and the other agency's contractors and the other agency's contractors. And I don't like saying, just come for a lunch. That's not it's not a free lunch. There's such thing, is it? But like the whole point of that is to build that trust with those individuals in a market, in an industry which is renowned for being horrendous.
Yeah.
And people being very sort of cautious about it. You can't beat that.
Right, from the client's point of view, I just don't understand it. I don't employ tech consultants. Well, I have a lot of agency staff and dry hours and different things, and there's not a chance I'd recruit for someone who hadn't met, who'd come in and showed an interest in our health and safety processes, or how the day-to-day, exactly as you said, how they sign in, what the shift looks like, what the vehicles look like, or anything. It's just
The recruiter should
Sure.
be an extension of you
Yeah.
as an organisation and an individual. And you know, when you meet someone face to face, you know what's their personality like. You know, are they communicative? Do they have eye contact? And all those sort of things. If you can mirror the hiring manager to make sure that they're the same sort of thing, or you've met the candidate now, like, look, this guy's going to be quite hard in these areas or whatever it is. But you know, there's a lot of recruitment that was done by clients on teams, and then they met them 3 years later for success, and they were either much shorter or and it was like they never met them. Then they just
And as well, something that I suppose I always found weird is if a client didn't want to meet the recruiter before they were engaged in the process. I always found that a bit strange, because to James's point, it's our job to sell their company to a candidate, and one of the best ways to do that is sit down and get the
Well, certainly the best experiences I've had is when the headhunters or the recruiters speaking to me are speaking as if they're the company that and they can also have that back and forth. Or if I'm pushing for a different benefit package or something, well, that won't be possible, but that probably will. And they're always the best experience I've had, and they're always the ones that lead to success, rather than the ones that sort of a bit more distant.
what it is in recruitment as well, it's having the confidence based on the ability of what you've done, the proof of what you've done, to be able to say to the client, do you want to work with that client?
Yeah.
It's not just one way.
Yeah.
I've turned business away with clients if they haven't, if I don't think culture, the right alignment. And you'd think if in 12 months in business you'd want to work with everybody. It's not. It's about, do I want to work with you as well? Because they should want to work with us in partnership.
Yeah.
Because of the value that they see. So I think it's both
yeah,
sides.
I agree.
And you partially mentioned it before, but when you're looking for new candidates, or a new candidate approaches yourself, and you go out and look for the word of mouth, and let's assume you can't find it, or maybe a few years ago when you were building the talent pool, how would you assess a candidate and take a view on whether that's somebody you wanted to work with in the future or not, if you haven't had any previous experience with them?
So I think that's ways, part of the question is how would you find candidates that you're not aware of at the moment within the technical stack? So we would know all the end users who use that technology. So we would then headhunt out of that client. So for example, with if we're doing a lot of work with GXO at the moment, and we don't work with Kuehne+Nagel. Kuehne+Nagel is the same technology stack globally. So we look at those guys, because you know that they've done the same sort of thing from a global perspective, same technology, etc. And how would I validate if they're good or not? Is doing that 360-degree referencing within the network. And if I haven't got that, I've never actually had that situation where no one's known who the person is in terms of shaking the tree. I think we're experiencing that more now in Europe, certainly. But we've got contacts at Blue Yonder directly that we can, or PHU where you were, etc., where we can ring and go, do you know this individual? And then I think if you don't know them, is being honest with that client and saying, look, I've normally work off, I know these people, this person's come from nowhere. I'm not sure about, we've tried to do a reference checks and come back in, but they, based on my experience and my feel, they come across that they know their stuff and they're doing X, Y, and Z. Because some people do just go under the radar. Some people aren't on LinkedIn. But it's that transparency point, isn't it? Of saying, look, almost like, seems really good, seems really credible, but
I agree. And I also think, having like you said, the ecosystem we operate in, there's only so many users of the technology, isn't there? So to map out clients that use the technology that you don't currently work with, who works in their tech team. You can then start building your map really easily. Really,
Yeah.
it's not, you know, if you say, I don't know, dispatch and beyond the dispatcher, there's what, 100 and odd clients globally. So it's not that as expansive as you might think actually to map all that out.
Okay, and who do you find the most difficult to manage, the candidates or the clients? Where do you spend most of your time?
Well, I think we've always viewed it as being one. So we never view it or think it as a person rather than a hat of a client or a candidate. Because for us, a client's a candidate and a candidate's a client. So I think it's just people, isn't it? Some people are just difficult, and so they look at me and go, "But you're a bit out there, or you're a bit challenging, or whatever." So I think it doesn't matter if it's a client or a candidate. It's the same. It's just dealing with people.
Yeah.
And being able to be agile with people.
I agree, and it's one of the founding principles of Infinite Talent actually around, the people you deal with today as a candidate may well be a client in the future, and vice versa. We've had clients who then you've placed as candidates, and it's treating them equally. And yeah, I mean, I've worked in WMS both sides, recruitment and consulting. WMS people some are strange, aren't they? There's strange characters all over the place. It's just understanding the quirkiness and guiding these people through a process, because a lot of them, do want to sort of get our opinion on what they should do, or whether it's X, Y, and Z they should look for or take as an offer.
And how do you think candidates are interpreting the market at the moment? Do you think they underestimate the market at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think without question, this is the most challenging market that I've seen since COVID, if not more challenging than COVID for candidates becoming available. There's a lot of people being made redundant. There's constantly bad news. I think that with candidates now, when they try and apply for a job online, I'll say to them, like, don't bother, because you'll get all these bots and it's what AI, like they'll just search out and they'll get, if a client advertises a role now, they get 1,000 applicants, and they'll get maybe the same people apply for a CEO down to a team leader in a warehouse. And they'll call me and go, "I'm really good for the job." I'm like, "You're not going. They cannot come back to you because the volume of what they've got." And then I think that people get frustrated with me because I can't get back to everybody, because there's literally hundreds of people within WMS supply chain logistics that are desperate looking for work at a really challenging time as well, coming up to Christmas. So I think they'll be finding it frustrating, irritating, and I think quite disheartening as well, is how I would say people are finding it. It's this time of year now, as you know, with the roles that you've done, if you haven't got a role in the next 2 weeks, you haven't got a role till Feb. It's just the nature of it is what it is. People shut down, don't they?
Yeah.
Come December, the peak, and then they'll come back in January and analyse what's gone wrong.
I agree. I think the market is very cyclical as well, isn't it? In terms of, especially with WMS technology, upgrade cycles are quite cyclical, and there's been Beyond have gone through a few challenges which have meant, the cycle's pushed out a bit. But then on the other hand, I suppose Manhattan's picking up, isn't it? They're doing quite a bit of sales. I think my sort of take on it, being in the situation myself, having, left the company recently, is I focused that job search as a full-time job. I was still up at the same time as I get up for work. I'd still conduct my day as if, I'd go to the place I'd work, from the local village hotel where I live. And it's about having that discipline as well while you're still looking for a job, and maintaining your network and your connections, and yeah, not just, I guess, blindly applying, because that could be disheartening. I applied for a couple of jobs randomly. I never heard back from them. I absolutely didn't hear anything back yet. All the ones I've got through my network have got me to the point I am now.
I think you say that network is really important, certainly when you're looking for work, because a lot of people won't. That's what all we do. We place people with people.
Yeah. And sometimes the jobs you fill don't even make it to market, do they?
No, but it's normally placed with people that know the person.
Correct.
Whereas a lot of people either feel embarrassed to reach out to people who they've worked with before, which is why using them like a specialist agency is not a bad thing, because obviously we've got a lot of like rhino skin, I suppose, of it, certainly. But it is definitely, it weighs quite heavily on me.
Yeah.
How many people I'm trying to support. So yeah, it's not. It's getting better.
It's stagnating, isn't it? The market, I would say, is probably the way to put it. I just feel it's, technically not in a recession, but we're certainly not growing. It feels very just flat, doesn't it? the big projects aren't there, are they really? Like in the volumes that we've seen
No,
that past.
big projects are on pause, and I think that if you look at, you talking about automation earlier, the amount of warehouses that are being automated now means that that team leader, shift manager, it naturally dies off.
Them, isn't they? Yeah.
It's naturally die. Yeah.
Yeah. I was lucky when I was made redundant. What was 6 years ago now, 5 years ago, I was in that same cycle of applying and applying. And the way I got the job was by speaking to a person in the end, because I was the same. I was 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, treating it like a job. And I've lost count of how many jobs I applied for. And I went through the experience on LinkedIn. You know, as soon as you see a job, over 100 applicants already.
Yeah.
And you know exactly, no point in applying. And since then, I've used LinkedIn myself twice to try and look for a candidate. And I think within 5 minutes of putting it on LinkedIn, I had 15 CVs in.
Yeah. The
You know,
hunting crews just caught me.
and you're turning it off quickly because you just can't cope with the volume that's coming in. So if you're not in the first 15, in my experience, you're probably not going to get your CV
Yeah.
even looked at, because
Yeah.
it's a tough market. So James, the next question I had for you, which I'll try and catch out if I can. Can you give me a placement that you've ever made that changed the game for a client?
Well, I did have to. I also I've got two answers to that, but I think the one I'm going to go with is placements, is what I would say. So, Clipper Logistics, as everybody will know, is like was my passion. It was I was very passionate about, and we are doing an event, the Clipper Connect event, for people that have been at Clipper that didn't really get a leave in do, where they got acquired by GXO. But during the PPE, during COVID, they obviously won the PPE contract. They were standing at warehouses left, right, and centre, and building teams, quite literally building teams of people to get everything done. But we were having sites that were being closed, and we were picking up people, and literally, so they were being made redundant on a Friday, shifting them across and placing them on the Monday. We were doing 7 days a week. Literally, the HR people would call us and go, right, they were offering people, they were interviewing people on benches outside. Things weren't there because it's really, really hot.
Was it?
So that one for me is two things. One is we played a real significant part in genuinely helping the UK with getting the PPE stock round when it was really, really challenging. But also the amount of people that we placed that were in tears saying, I didn't think I was going to get a job. I've got my mortgage, kids, like all that sort of stuff. We quite genuinely probably placed 500 people, at least, I would say. Fixed term contracts, all sorts of stuff. And people go, oh, you made loads of money. We absolutely didn't. I think we were doing it at £500 or £500 or higher.
Yep. No.
If that. So that wasn't a financial. Yes, it helped us keep going through a difficult period of time. But that single point being able to do that was really, really, really rewarding. Especially when people were.
And a lot of those people are still there, aren't they? Have moved up through the organisation, and
yeah,
Yeah,
and I think just knowing that you played that part in helping people.
It was crazy.
A really difficult time.
So I remember, like, colleagues and people we knew were all furloughed, and it was me and you.
Yeah, I mean, we had a shocker ready, to be fair, because I once a Clip had been a client for a long time, and the HR director called me up and said, look, do you want to do this for us? Because we can't cope with the volume, but you have to do it at the internal cross-charge rate. So I was like, yeah, because we weren't going to struggle to get lights on, but it was tough.
But WMS just turned off, didn't it?
But 2 days before, we'd furloughed 2 or 3 of the team. And then ridiculously, the rule was you couldn't unfurlough them for 4 weeks. I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
So me and Dan were doing like 7 days a week with blazing sun, and everyone else was, because a lot of people perceived furlough as annual leave rather than redundancy, which is what furlough was. It was redundant, as you know, it was redundancy, but it was a safety net. Still having drinks in the garden and all the rest of it. And we were there grafting, weren't we? Like placing all these people there. So it really was fascinating, but really very, very rewarding for sure.
Yeah, you just brought a memory back. I'm sure the people that sell those take-home draft kegs all made a fortune in COVID. The amount of people I know that built a bar in their garden is crazy.
Well, there's a load of people that spun off companies, didn't they? They were selling alcohol that went to hand sanitizer,
right?
As well. I really made because alcohol.
Oh right, sorry, yeah.
So and there was a lot of money that was made that shouldn't have been made, I would think.
Well, PPE is a bit of a swear word, isn't it? Yeah. Because when James and I talk about it, I have clarified with a few people here. Clipper were distributing the PPE. They weren't in charge of supplying the PPE into the NHS.
There's a lot of warehouses that are still fully stacked with stuff in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people made a lot of money.
I think it was just bonkers being on almost the inside of that operation of what was going on with,
Remarkable.
government officials and, all this politicians and Clipper were at the heart of making sure that was, distributed effectively. And it was all hands to the pump, wasn't it, really? In those.
Yeah, but again, just lovely when, I think Debenhams went under, didn't it, during that time? But there's quite a few that went under, but no, Debenhams shut a site, which was like,
Yeah, there was one of them
opposite.
literally on the same industrial estate, and they all got issued their
on the Friday, we placed
notices.
on the Monday.
And on Monday, we just said to Clipper, well, that site's going out, just put them across.
I think it's also that kind of human element when you go through those phases with people, the clients as well as the candidates. They're the ones that make your word of mouth also extremely strong. Or they're the moments when you might do 7 days a week and 18 hours a day, but they're the moments that people remember for 20 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting calls at like 11 o'clock on an evening, on a Sunday. I remember I was asleep and Nick called me, and he was on a Sunday at 11 o'clock at night, and I go to bed at like 8 o'clock, whatever. And he was like, "Are you awake? Have I ever woken you up?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "What? Can we get into it then? 'Cause we need these roles sorting tomorrow." I was like, "Yeah, let's get into it, get it done."
It's really weird actually because one of the candidates we placed there on as a team leader, this guy was out of work. He'd been an ops manager before, but he was out of work. He took a team leader role at Clipper, worked his way up a little bit, then left and went to a major makeup business, Sephora, and then engaged us back at Infinite to recruit a role for his boss. And it was that full circle. As I say, he took a team leader role just to pay the bills, and we made a £500 fee on him on that particular placement. But then, 4 years later, he came back as a customer.
Made you a millionaire then. Yeah, Sanchez.
No, people don't forget though, do they?
No, they don't forget.
No, they don't.
No. It's important.
If you're honest, if you genuinely, it's really is a buzzword, but if you are honest and you do care and you do the right thing, the byproduct of that is money.
Yep.
After the fact.
Yeah, money's an outcome, isn't it?
If you chase the money, you'll be transactionally successful for a short period.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, Dan, what was your biggest save, if there was, where a deal that might have or should have collapsed?
Yeah, I think
you managed to pull.
I think, if we look outside of recruitment, obviously the PPE thing still resonates with me, but in my world from a sort of WMS services perspective, just working with a retailer who had a bit of a sticky implementation around Blue Yonder, and they were in a tough geography, shall we say, to find people. And we managed to get a team of 5 or 6 people in there and get them through to a very stable period. And they were meant to do their upgrade this year, but they got a reprieve actually of next year they were meant to do it, but they got a reprieve to do it a year later. But they're in a really steady state now. So for me, that was good, really being able to help them and solutionize a team of people and a set of services to get them out of that tricky spot, really.
We mentioned that the market is quite tough at the moment, more candidates than opportunities probably. So how would you recommend a candidate present themselves in order to stand out or retrain, whatever the necessity is?
I think if you're in the world of WMS, it's about training across multiple WMSs. So not saying to be, strategy specialist in a load of them, but if you're specialist in Blue Yonder Dispatcher, which has been struggling at the moment, how can you educate yourself on Blue Yonder Discrete? Because that's where a lot of the market is going. Or how do you get exposure onto Manhattan Active or Dynamics or Corba or whatever it is? You need to have them all, at least a couple of systems that you're good on. And then I think if you look at it from a logistics perspective, it is it's a difficult question actually. If you're purely like a logician, I suppose it's a difficult one to answer. To how do you stand out? Because there is literally thousands of people.
I think that's where working with a good recruiter, and they can present to their clients. I think that's probably worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I know when we've recruited logistics people in the past, we took a different angle to most people. Then we're looking at, yes, they're operational people, but we still looked at what tech they'd used at their other companies. So had they used the same WMS as the same logistics firm, or, was it e-com search specific things that they were involved in? And applying that sort of spin on things helped us place people that other agencies couldn't find, really.
Yeah, I think it's saying standing out as a candidate as well is that if you go to LinkedIn nowadays, if you believed everything that was on there, you'd think the world is coming to an end tomorrow. And I'm a big believer that you can find good news, if you type it into Google, you find bad news. It's how it's a right frame. But I think because there's so many people now that are publicly going, I'm desperate for work or whatever, because I know it's, and I'm thankfully, I'm not in that situation as it stands currently, but I think sometimes you have to really understand that LinkedIn is your window of how you're seen.
Yeah.
And saying, a pint, a pint of beer and going, oh, I've had another interview which is being bombed, or just recruiters are rubbish or whatever. Like, it's the wrong narrative for what you need to. I understand it because it's desperation led in the main, and people have it. But I think you need to really understand that that's not a social media platform. It is a business platform, and how you perceive there. If you're constantly ranting and raving and all the rest of it, you need to think about the perception. Even if you don't feel like that.
Yeah.
Perception reality sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And you think posting regularly on LinkedIn as a candidate is seen at all?
I think it's seen. I think it's really tricky, and it depends on the narrative again. Because if you're posting every day, a pint of beer saying, or whatever it is, and it's a bit negative, it's a bit like you're then not earmarked, but it's almost a bit like, if you're saying I'm going to events, networking events, or this is a bit more about me as an individual. This is my background. War stories.
I agree,
etc.
and it's keeping it like you say, LinkedIn's a professional site, and I think you should apply a job hunt like it's a job, right? So I think the same applies with LinkedIn. Would you post that content if you were in a job?
Yeah.
Probably not if it's a pint of beer on a Monday at 12 o'clock. But would you post something, a poll or something about an event, or something about your background, a war story, like Jen said, an example, or that sort of stuff? I think is engaging. I think
Because people forget that it just takes one person to hire.
Yeah.
It takes one person to view that post, or for two, for it to be reshared, or whatever it is, and it can be. But again, that's so to start with the marketing is, what do you want the message to be? How do you want to be perceived? Why does it matter to somebody? When I was posting, I set up it's very personal to me. Whereas now we're a business, it's a different message. Same for a candidate, but I also get very, very difficult when you are frustrated and you're sitting there thinking, how on earth am I going to get a job? It is easy to do it that way, but tough.
I think the other thing I've noticed as well is from a candidate's perspective is almost don't think it's 2019, 2020 anymore. You might have to travel half an hour now. That's an acceptable commute, or an hour is an acceptable commute. That's the world we live in, and maybe
Salaries are different.
Yeah, salaries are different. There was a company that entered the UK market a few years ago as a consultancy business, and really did break the world in terms of salaries, didn't they? Almost paying double what you could get elsewhere, and that's probably gone back down to normal now. I think everyone's getting back to reality on that, and it's just understanding the world you're in. You might have to travel a bit more. You might have to look at a more realistic salary expectation.
Well, and I think it might be my real view is that some money is better than no money as well. So I'm not saying you cheapen yourself or anything like that, but actually if you can be, a bit of saying, right, okay, like if I lost everything today, I'd go and work in a pub whilst I was rebuilding. I don't care. I'll look at a pound note as a pound note. I think sometimes the opportunity to go and work in an organisation on a different technology, that means you have to take a 12-month hit. Is a longer term on it as well, because the money that comes in, because everything's gone up, hasn't it? So if you're on benefits or whatever, or your savings, a lot of people have got 1 or 2 months bills saved, haven't they? If that. So I would look at that as well. But again, leaning on network, people that you've worked with before that know you.
And some things you are right. Some jobs are opportunities, even though it's a lower salary, it might lead to bigger things. Whereas, a job that pays a higher salary might just be the cap, if that makes sense. So it's understanding that balance, and I think that's where a recruiter can help, because they can tell you about companies that are growing companies, their opportunity to progress, versus you going in there, you're going to be on that for the next 5 years.
Yep.
Then the same question for the clients: is there a common theme where you have to reorientate the client on how to present their opportunity in order to find the right clients, or is the market such at the moment that it's fairly factual? And
I think you agree factual, but I think that the only issue that you have to try and do is educate them on salaries.
Yeah.
Because a lot of clients will still look at WMS as under the generic IT system, so they'll place them in the same bracket, and it's about educating them and saying, if someone rang me 2 years ago and said, I need a Blue Yonder technical architect, I'm going to pay 50 grand. I'd be like, you're way off. You need to be 100, 110. Whereas how the market has changed, it's almost gone back to how that sort of was. But it's educate the client and saying, pushing back again, based on your competitor spread, this is who we work with. This is what they pay. You need to pay in line with that in order to, all these, a lot of things out around soft benefits.
Yeah.
So your pensions,
Healthcare is a big
healthcare is a big one. All those sort of things. It's all that. It's not just sometimes about the transaction.
Yeah. And I think as well, the biggest thing I used to educate people around, both from recruitment and consultancies, is geography.
Yep.
If you want a Blue Yonder discrete consultant on site 5 days a week, but your facility is in Aberdeen, well, you might struggle with that. If there's not another facility using Blue Yonder in a 50-mile radius, where are you physically going to get them from? And that's just the education piece of sometimes companies might have to flex on certain things based on where the talent is based. If you're in Corby or Northampton, you probably won't have a problem because you're surrounded. But if you're in a bit of a niche geography or a random place, then you do struggle, don't you, with that talent? And that's what that retail customer had. There wasn't another Blue Yonder user in a 70-mile radius.
Yeah. Okay, so you've had years of experience now, both of you, and combined experience with your teams. But a new entry into the world of recruitment, a young recruiter joining now, what would be your 2 or 3 words or sentences of advice?
For me would be identify a niche, just to be able to stand out, and keep disciplined and keep consistent with your activity, and be honest. Would be the main one. So niche, 'cause you can add value, consistency. When you become successful, hopefully if you do, don't think you've cracked the code. Always challenge and reset yourself.
Yeah.
And say, okay, that year's done. This is what we need to set for next year. A lot of people get complacent, because it's a very challenging industry with what we're in. So I think that will be difficult for people in generation to come into recruitment to go, because the perception of it is so much of 3-piece suits and recruiters getting smashed down the pub and earning loads of commission and all the rest of it. I think looking at it as a profession and realizing you have to have resilience, and you're going to have to be a specialist. You have to be saying to candidates, I don't know what I'm doing at the moment, but we work in a company that does. Can you just help? People like to be able to help people.
Yeah. I think you've nailed it. I think the other couple of bits I'd add is, give it time as well. Don't just do it for 6 months and then expect to be a millionaire. It's not going to happen. You need to stick at it. There's a famous photo that does the rounds, isn't there, about the person in the gold mine that's looking for gold, and they're one more strike away from the gold, but they give up. So I think that's the key. Stick at it. We've stuck at it for a number of years, and time will tell. But also respect the game you play. And to James's point, don't think you're too cool or too than what you do. You've got to live it. You've got to really be interested and want to do to help people and want to understand what you're doing. Because if you don't, it's going to be hard work, because it's not 9 to 5. It's always, what time is it now? We're here doing a podcast about the industry we live in. If you won't come and do this sort of thing, you ain't going to cut it, because people that will always outwork you.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, you have to just be. I couldn't do what I do in recruitment for financial services or something like that, because I'm not passionate. I don't understand it. I literally, I'm very fortunate that when I wake up, I really thoroughly enjoy exactly what I do.
If you could read the WhatsApps between me and him about some of the WMS chat, you'd think we are sad as hell.
Yeah, but you have to be ingrained and genuinely passionate.
We play a game, don't we, James? Between ourselves, but other people is. You see a lorry or you see a company, we challenge people that work for us, and we do it between ourselves. But name the WMS that they use, and if you quizzed us on, I don't know, most major retailers, we could probably tell you what WMS system they use, and that's the sort of sad level you need to get to.
Can you do any coding yourself? Any
No.
config? No.
That's where AI comes in. You don't need that. Just
well, I have looked at it, but unfortunately, I had a Nokia 3210 to about 4 or 5 years ago. So, and I don't believe in AI. So, I look at it and I see it's green in the main. That's about it. But no, is it green?
Well, AS400 was it?
That's how long ago I saw it.
But do you got that one? Surprisingly, is blue.
So no, I don't. No.
I mean, from my perspective, not from a technical coding perspective, but Blue Yonder demo walkthroughs, I've done those. From a functional perspective, is probably the limit of my knowledge. But But ultimately, I don't really need to do it. I just need to understand it and how it fits in to the context of the customer I'm talking to, really, and I suppose that's the bit where me flipping out of recruitment and back into it and through the consultancy channel has given me, I suppose, a bit of a deeper understanding of WMS
Yeah.
is what I'm, grateful for the opportunities outside of recruitment as well as in recruitment.
It's interesting for you though, which I haven't said. You haven't paid me to say this. If I was a large retailer or 3PL, I'd be speaking to you about how you train to recruit logistics people.
Interesting.
Without question, fractionally, and say what's the training manual? How do you do what you've done? Is what I would do.
In theory, the
Obviously, that cuts me out then. So yeah,
in theory, the REPL setup was what we tried to do was tried to create an agency within a company, and it's slightly easier in the consultancy world because you're hiring people to deploy to projects, so they become billable. I think big retailers, it would be good for them. I don't know whether culturally they'd get their head around it. That's the
well, no, but it would be for like Marks and Spencer.
yeah.
What they're opening up their new distribution centre, like major million square foot distribution centres.
Oh yeah,
They
100%.
don't have to pay loads more than an agency. Like you can set the cookie cutter, as you say. That's what I believe on him for.
Yeah.
I don't have access to that world.
Recruitment's a little bit like magic, isn't it? Once you see behind the curtain, it's very process driven, very, very methodical. There's no magic wand or magic set of things. It's a very just methodical process that we know inside out and other specialists know inside out. And that's the key to it, really.
Yeah. Super. So what we'll do just to wind it down, just 4 or so quick fire fun questions and see where we go. As the worst buzzword in supply chain recruitment.
Specialist.
It's funny enough in the past when I've been looking for job titles for certain roles, I've always come back to specialist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, really, because in recruitment there's a lot of touching base. There's a lot of those type of cliche take things offline. Especially in my world, it's there's when I was at PhD, we created a business alignment meeting, and it was like all heads of department, and the theory was if you can't solve a problem in that room, it probably can't be solved. So I banned the word taking it offline because it just can't. I just hate that phrase. So from a consulting world, offline taking things offline is probably my one.
Most satisfying placement.
Clipper.
Yeah, I think again
Yeah.
placements. So Clipper for sure.
The same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. The question is one WMS you love but rarely say publicly, but maybe it's
I think Blue Yonder's probably the common theme throughout this one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I suppose we've both companies I've worked outside of recruitment has been Blue Yonder partners. That said, Manhattan Active is making a major play to be in the top dog. I did a poll on LinkedIn last week, got 200 odd votes on there, and Manhattan came out on top of who would be the best WMS in 2026.
Yeah, I agree.
and coffee, tea, or energy drink.
Coffee. I don't have 5 before 9.
Weirdly, I didn't drink coffee drinks. No, I only started drinking coffee 2 years ago.
Definitely.
But yeah, probably energy drink if I had to pick. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been really interesting and exciting to speak as a both of you. So good luck with everything NXA and good luck with everything DLH Tech and Talent.